We have 3 vegan options, so whoever ordered those 2, that's ready as well, if you were wondering.
I know. Okay, everybody, we're going to start the Ladies of Liberty forum.
Show us your enthusiasm this morning.
I know. So, we'll start with introductions and then we'll kind of get into it. Most of you already know us up here. So, this is our 4th Ladies of Liberty panel. So it's actually great to keep doing this every year here at convention. I'm Brittany Kozin. I am the founder of the Medical Freedom Caucus, and I'm also the Pennsylvania lead for Ladies of Liberty Alliance, which is different than this Ladies of Liberty, but they've kind of have merged into one and the same over the years. So I have my lovely guest, Avens.
Hi, everybody. I know you've seen me all weekend, so I guess I'll my relevant experience to this is that I've on and off led the Los Angeles chapter of Lola for the last 16 years or so. And it's been funny actually in LA. It's just periodically somebody gets busy, and so it's been passed around like a hot potato of like who's actually leading Lola there. I'm also on the board of the Medical Freedom Caucus, aren't I? Yeah, I there are things I kind of remember. How's everyone doing out there? Are you enjoying your breakfast and your mimosas? The mimosas are available over there, and I just figure it'll be easier to listen to us if you're drinking. So I just, good morning.
So, so a lot of I actually have a plan this year. Usually, I kind of just wing it.
No plan.
I know. This is a minimal plan. So kind of I'm going to start with a little bit of what liberty kind of means, just not in a theory, but in like everyday life from a female perspective here, because there's not many of us in the party, but I see more and more every year. So we're doing good. We got to get these men speaking to ladies. I know that's hard. So a lot of it is it's from a female perspective. Now I am a mom and stuff, so I have a different perspective, or a more common one that you see. We have it is, I say liberty is something as a mom, I get to pick how my kids are raised in my home and how I run my household, and I don't care. I don't need anyone telling me how to do it. And I want to have it that I'm not thought of as just a wife. Like I always correct people. I'm not TJ's wife. I'm Brittany. So that's a big thing that I push. And I really support, I'll support my husband and stuff, but at the same time, I'm also the first one to tell him when he's wrong. And everyone who knows me knows that I will straight up throw him under the bus if I have to. And then back up and go over again. So a lot of it is just being able to let women have their voice and let them make their opinions, and just being respectful and not following those stereotypes.
It's been really interesting from my perspective, is not just as an activist in liberty circles, but also I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a co-founder in a company in the psychedelic industry. And so I not only get the perspective of like being a female libertarian can make me a minority at times, but also being a woman, a female mycologist, a woman who works in the psychedelic space. There are other women in this space, but not a lot of founders and entrepreneurs. And so it gets very interesting because, I'm fighting for my economic liberty, I'm fighting for my personal liberty in all these different ways. But it is also interesting because I kind of brush up against, working with groups like legalization groups and things like that, that are definitely oriented slightly towards the left, and finding my voice, knowing that like, I definitely have different political opinions than the people are going to assume that I do, as we are, working on legalization efforts in California or nationwide. People will definitely expect, oh, she's a woman, she has magenta hair, like she probably is going to be left of center, and I'm definitely not. And that tends to be a really interesting dynamic, because it means that I'm sitting here as a minority, both in my own political movement, but then that kind of that status in which like I show up at a legalization event, and I start talking about like best methods of legalization, and I have very different ideas than the left in terms of like how we deal with the economic ramifications of legalization and what regulations should be put in place, which in my world is none. And so it's an interesting right. It's an interesting dynamic to start advocating, as a woman who's going to be in certain environments expected to have a particular set of beliefs, and then for them to suddenly realize that that's not the case at all, and to be able to advocate for those in a way that also hopefully brings more women and people from, let's say, the legalization space into the libertarian side of that instead of the left side of that. So that's where I kind of come from.
Yeah, and I come from a lot of like the medical freedom side and the medical side of stuff, and it's interesting seeing when I start speaking to different people and being like, yeah, I think it should be, and people always ask, and TJ always throws this question at me, so I'm going to beat him to it. It is so contentious, and it keeps getting that way, is the abortion topic, and a lot of it is I go and say, and we try not to touch on it and take a position, because I take it as with medical freedom, it's something, but, and I always use I'm not pro-choice, I'm not pro-life in a political perspective, I'm pro your choice, and that's the medical freedom perspective. It's something that you as the individual and your doctor need to make an educated decision and a team decision on. And I don't think the government should have any say in any of that, because what do they know? Very few, if any, are doctors, and very few, if any, have really had to make that decision. Now there's some, but it's they shouldn't be telling others. And I love my phrase, you do you, boo boo. And it's something that I like to really not have an opinion on, but if I do, I don't care. It's keep it, don't keep it, adopt, don't adopt, whatever. Like, I'm so passive on it, but people make it so contentious, and it doesn't need to be. It's a medical decision and a personal decision, and no one should judge each other on it.
Obviously, I do agree with that, of course, but I definitely think that it's important to, as we advocate for, I think it's important in any issue that we advocate for liberty. It's really, really good to show the human side of that thing. So you're talking about, schools and privatizing education. It's important to talk about families and children and better education and all these different topics. And so when it comes to the abortion issue or reproductive freedom in any capacity, whether it's your right to access IVF or your right to adopt adopt, your right to surrogacy, or your right to hire someone to participate in your reproductive journey in whatever way you want, or to have an abortion or to seek fertility treatments. I think I really like to kind of emphasize that human story, that like this is definitely a topic that's going to affect women more than men, and not just like, whether or not we have a right to do something with our bodies, but what are the implications when we say that someone doesn't. If you say that someone doesn't have the right to do something with their body, you could start with abortion, but then how do we deal with miscarriages that people find like sketchy or concerning, like, oh, maybe that was actually abortion, and also just the number of complications in women's health care that I think are just like a lot of people don't think about, the way that way that things can kind of turn on a dime, and government isn't the solution for the very minute details of a woman's of any person's healthcare journey. And so whether it's, a complication during pregnancy, or, choosing to like follow a particular regimen of health that perhaps the FDA doesn't think is the best regimen of health. We see all sorts of ways in which the government tries to impose their will on people in general, but especially on women who are pregnant with like it's absolutely amazing when you start to realize what the government will impose. And one of the things that was interesting is so I'm in California, and cannabis is legal in California, and a friend of mine was pregnant and intending to keep the baby and everything, and she did, a healthy little baby boy. But when she went to her medical practitioner, she works in the cannabis industry. She does like cannabis reviews. She talks about cannabis all the time. And her doctor was aware of that and informed her that they would be drug testing her throughout her pregnancy for cannabis, and they would be calling like CPS if she tested positive. Now, like a number of us recognize that like cannabis and its effects on birth, on a child in utero or afterwards, there's certainly like the jury's out on whether those things affect. But the fact is that like now her life is in some way, like her liberty is being infringed upon to the extent that it could take away her child when she's trying to make the best decision possible. And a lot of women don't talk about it, but use things like cannabis for the nausea that comes from pregnancy. So it is really fascinating where like it can start as this sort of, hey, we're trying to protect, mothers and babies, but then suddenly we're like destroying families over something like that. And so it's really fascinating, the tiny little ways in which government can impose itself on, hey, we know what's best for you.
Yeah, and I also like to see a touch in and how women we're not treated, and our perspective or opinions on things are not taken seriously in the medical field as a patient, because you could have it. You see it's such a subconscious bias that is implied on women that we can handle things better, so we don't need more medications or pain meds or taken seriously. Like a woman will come, like if you have a woman coming to a doctor, my stomach hurts, and they'll say, okay, here, take this little, take an over the counter medication, drink some water, get some rest, deal with it. And a man would come in, my stomach hurts. Oh, let's get a CAT scan. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's check this. Let's do that. Okay, you get narcotic pain medication. Here's that. Like, I get most men can't handle the pain, but at the same time, the women need the same treatment and respect and to be taken seriously. And it's a big thing. Just with different things, it's just seeing how in the medical field, how men get coddled. I'll use that word, coddled, compared to the women, because it's like the phrasing, the man flu. It ran through my household over the like 2 weeks ago. My husband thought he was dying, and I'm there. I was sick for 2 or 3 days, and I was caring for a 6-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 36-year-old. And I had in my phone, I had all 3 medication schedules with the reminders and was on top of everyone getting their medications. And they stayed sick longer, and I was ready in 3 days. But again, I'm also a nurse, so I have probably a better immune system, but still, like, mom has to go and get up and still run the house and still take care of everybody else. Mom can't be sick. Like, that is not it. Like, I get it that, yeah, we can handle it, but at the same time, we shouldn't have to.
It's also beyond the gendering that can occur in the healthcare industry. It's also, I mean, I think, and this is a point that speaks to all like libertarian sensibilities, which is the fact that like government shouldn't be getting in the way of doctors and the way that they treat their patients. And we see this increasingly. I mean, obviously the reproductive freedom issue, but the fact is the government puts the completely arbitrary restrictions on things like the prescription of particular medications, on you know, how and when you can prescribe opioids, how and when you can prescribe ADHD medication, and the only person that should be able to decide, well, frankly, the only person who should be able to decide what medications you're on is you. But the second person who, you know, you presumably would counsel with is your doctor. And the fact that your doctor could go, hey, I'd like to prescribe you. Hey, women are overwhelmingly underdiagnosed for, say, ADHD. And so however you feel about Adderall or Ritalin or Vyvanse or whatever like that, the fact is, like, you should be able to seek whatever treatments you want. You talk to your doctor, and the government puts arbitrary restrictions on the number of pills that like the manufacturer of Adderall can make. And people don't even realize this, but there's like a shortage of medications across this country, and it's because the government has decided, oh, there's too much of that. And so what ends up happening is then doctors start rationing those prescriptions and rationing who's able to get medication. And like, and it, you know, it's not deeply a gendered issue, but the fact is that women are overwhelmingly seen as being able to handle, oh, you can't get medicated for that thing, it's okay. Women just handle things. Women are better at multitasking. Women, and it really just sucks because it's like when you end up with this kind of benevolent sexism that can occur in the medical industry, combined with that, like, very, like, it's just completely insane that the government gets to decide how doctors are going to treat patients. And I think that's something that, like, regardless of your position on, let's say, reproductive rights or anything like that, I feel like everyone can kind of get behind the idea that, like, doctors shouldn't have to be accountable to the government for these sorts of things. Like the doctors shouldn't have to justify why I'm prescribing these patients these medications. Recently, a friend of mine had gotten an elective surgery. She'd gotten a breast implants in Louisiana. And after her surgery was over, she'd had drains in her body, all these things, she was informed that they weren't allowed to prescribe narcotic painkiller medication. And so she was given ibuprofen to deal with this pain. And it was absolutely insane. It was because of the government's war on drugs extends to prescription drugs, extends to controlling that. And so this is like an actual surgery where they've cut open her chest and stuck in, and however you feel about that, the fact is that, like, she wasn't even informed until after the surgery that she would be given 800 milligrams of ibuprofen to deal with that pain. Which means that she, of course, contacts people to go, does anyone have any like leftover Percocet from something, or ketamine or something to help with that pain, which then, of course, perpetuates the drug war. So let's, you know, just as a reminder, the government fucking sucks.
I will add to the Adderall thing. At the counter to that too is also, they also say that that's the solution to everything. So they overprescribe, and then the pharmacy goes, I don't have it. I deal with that with our oldest. Yeah. So we're going to open up to questions. So if anyone has any questions, of course you do. So the question is basically, what is the craziest thing as a woman that you have been told at a libertarian event? craziest one for me, a lot of it is what was, you know which one I'm thinking of. No, that wasn't an introduction. I have where I've never met this person and they know my husband and they come up to me and they apparently have made a decision on who I am as a person based off my husband and have called me some very colorful names. That was probably the craziest I've had.
So I'm really lucky that like I've been part of the LP for so long that like I typically don't, like, this is gonna sound really weird, but I typically walk into a room and enough people know me that I usually don't get some random stranger like going like, "Hey, little pretty lady, how'd you get into Liberty?" But it happens occasionally. I actually had this wasn't an LP event specifically. It was a Freedom Fest event. And some guy randomly walked up to me at a bar to ask me if I was an anarchist or not, and then but like was clearly like trying to like check me about like if I was libertarian enough. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, we're at a bar at Freedom Fest. Like, why are you? Anyway, it was really funny too. Like, this is probably the most dickish I've ever been to any person. Like, I generally try to be very, very nice to people, but this guy kept trying to talk me up, and then he and he was like, "So what brings you to Freedom Fest? You know, what are you into?" And I looked at him and I said, "So it's your first Freedom Fest, huh?" And he said, "Yeah, how'd you know?" And I was like, "Because you don't know who I am," which was probably the like most like it was really like I was like, "Whoa, here I am being a total dick." But the fact was like I've attended like 13 of them, and I'm a speaker, and I had a badge on that said speaker, so you'd think that he would have like thought for a second. But when I have encountered situations in which people have not known me off the bat, which is extremely rare. I mean, a lot of people make assumptions around my red hair that they think, oh, I must be one of those angry feminists. I must be a leftist. I must believe in welfare. I must believe in public schools. I must believe in SJW nonsense, blah, 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 blah. And what's really funny is that, like, instead of having a conversation with me where they go like, oh, hey, like, how's your day? Like, what, what brings you here in kind of a much more like friendly tone. I have encountered, and I've met other women who've encountered this, where men just walk up like, we don't believe in feminism, right? We don't believe in like universal healthcare, right? It's like, why would you assume that about somebody? Why would you assume like where they're going, where you think there's going to be friction? Like, wouldn't you want to just have a conversation with somebody to find out, hey, what are you interested in? What do you care about? You might find the mother who's homeschooling her kids who thinks the public school is a fucking crock. Like, you might find she may or may not have opinions about, like, she might have soft opinions on particular issues. But like, what's really funny is if you actually like do that to men, ironically, the same thing had happened. It doesn't happen. Like, typically that's not what happens. You don't go up to a dude who just showed up at a Liberty event and go, hey, we don't believe in welfare. Hey, we don't believe in public schools. Hey, you don't tend to, like, there doesn't tend to be that level of animosity up front. But if you did that, I bet you'd find some of them being super offended too. Several years ago, I did this really informal poll. I was writing for the Libertarian Republic, and I decided to do this poll in which I asked people why they weren't libertarians. And it came from a conversation like this where people said, hey, why aren't women libertarians? And I said, if your data only focuses on women and all you get is women's responses, then you actually don't find out what makes women specifically less likely to be libertarian than men. Because if you're just asking women, then you're not asking men, and so you don't see where their answers are different. And so I walked around, I was like, hey, fill this out, tell me if you're male or female, and what your things are that you don't believe in, and why you're not a libertarian. And I was like, I want all of my non-libertarian friends to answer this. And what was crazy is that like the answers, like, from all walks of life, of like men and women, we're all like, I just think there should be some kind of social safety net, or I don't think the libertarians are good enough on this issue, or and it was really funny because I was like, so what I'm reading is that like men, like men and women all have the same kind of weaknesses as to why they're not libertarian. And so maybe it's just that we're reaching out to men more. Maybe it's that men are more comfortable in an ideology that's going to get some pushback socially. Like, I don't know, but like, it's not a single issue. It's not like women care more about the poor, because like every poll I saw was that men did too. And so I think it's a really important thing for people to note that there's that a lot of times when we gear this like question about women and liberty, we kind of miss those nuances. And I totally saw that Ilya had his question.
So the question is it worth bringing significant others to libertarian events and local, or to be more welcoming of significant others, even if they're not, or
improve the ratios.
all right, so bringing significant others, libertarian or not, to events and being more welcoming to the significant others. Is that I would say that it helps, because it could always bring them to the libertarians, seeing what their significant other is involved in and stuff, and seeing why they see it at home, but seeing other people that they're at their circles and stuff that they could bring, or they could go and speak to their friends and be like, hey, yeah, I was at the convention with my husband over the weekend, and
So the answer is kind of a yes and no. The first part is that yes, I think that it's beneficial to have a larger group of people at events, for that group to include more women. I think it makes more women feel comfortable. I think it also, I mean, it also kind of requires that the people who show up, male or female, who are hyper libertarians, don't just like dick measure the whole time. Like, it really, like, we need to have people kind of be like, hey, there's gonna be newbies here. There's gonna be people that aren't necessarily libertarian, but they might be interested. And you know what's a really funny example of this is that like, everyone knows Spike Cohen, and Spike Cohen is amazing. Has anyone ever had a conversation about political policy with his wife Tasha? Like, sometimes, but like, she's not like she's not a member of the libertarian. But nobody treats her bad. Like, everybody's like, oh, you're Spike's wife, or sorry, he's Tasha's husband, right? Everybody loves her and welcomes her. And I think that like we should see more of that. We should see more of just like, hey, welcome. You're here to support your partner. You're here because you're interested in ideas. And like, we don't need to whip out our dicks and measure them and make sure you're sufficiently libertarian enough. One of the biggest things that Lola did, one of the originating concepts of Ladies of Liberty Alliance, was the idea that we weren't actually out to recruit women specifically. We were out to help the women that were already in the movement become better leaders, and to train them to be able to get up on stage and speak and answer questions and do media interviews, and in general become leaders in this space. And the idea was that if instead of just being like, oh, we need more women, we also needed more female leaders. And the reason for needing more female leaders is because, one, it helps kind of like social proof something that that more women will feel comfortable in a space in which they see that there are women in leadership. And then the second thing was also for instances in which we see like certain liberty organizations have had claims of harassment, sexual abuse, things like this. Like, if there are more women in positions of power, there are more women who are going to take those claims seriously and do something about that. And then women who come into the movement are going to feel more seriously taken care of in that way. And so I think that having more women in the movement and bringing in partners who might not be fully libertarian, or even at all libertarian, but just being there for social support, I think it reminds us that we live in a society in which sometimes people aren't going to agree with us, but we should learn how to get along. We should learn how to play nice with others. And it also helps kind of create this comfortable atmosphere. And yeah, the more women that are at an event, the safer I feel. Like, it's just a general thing. And I honestly, like, it's not just women who feel that way. Children feel safer in environments in which there are more women. Like that is just like, it just becomes a more welcoming place for people. Lana.
All right. So outside of reproductive and family rights, what things should the Libertarian Party focus on to appeal to more women? Non-libertarian women. Okay. I want to make sure I got it right. I again with it, there's so many things, but I think a lot of it we covered it, not even just reproductive, we covered just healthcare. That is a good question. Do you have anything?
I mean, like, at the risk of being like, everything, women care about everything. But the fact is, like, I mean, if you look at social trends nowadays, I mean, yeah, reproductive health, things, I mean, like education. I mean, a lot of women recognize that public schools are doing terrible things to their kids. Like that's a real thing. But also, like, I mean, my generation is the generation of like boss babes, right? It was a bunch of women who are choosing career over family. And that's not for like exclusively. Like, there are plenty of my friends are having kids and stuff, but lots of my friends are also like, oh, like, I'm trying to be an entrepreneur, I'm trying to succeed in my career, I want to be a director of a company or whatever. And it's really funny because I feel like those are really great opportunities to have economic conversations with them. And like, I have a couple friends of mine in LA that, yeah, I mean, we chat about abortion rights and stuff, and they're, we're on board there. And like, we have conversations about liberty, and like with current events, I'm just like, the Libertarian Party is the only consistently anti-war political party. And my friend is like, that's fucking awesome, because I was really disappointed with Obama, and I'm really disappointed with like, it's all awful. And we'll talk about all these things, healthcare, reproductive rights, etc. But I think that women actually give a fuck about economic issues. They just don't care about it the way that like the way that we read about it in a lot of books is sometimes not the way we should really be discussing it. But the fact is, like, women recognize that the government is taking a huge percentage of their paychecks, and they also realize that it's not going to the things they care about. And so when I get to talk to other women about, the fact that the government is taking, this chunk of money from me, and then it's going to bomb children overseas, and it's going to pay for government programs like ICE that I don't support. Like, I think that it's so important to go, hey, your money is your own, and you are a boss babe, and you're making money, and you're succeeding, and you want to take care of your family and your life and your whatever you want to do, travel the world, whatever. But like, the US government is actively making it less safe to do so. It's actively taking a portion of your income. It's actively inflating your income out of existence. And I think that actually, like, I think there's a really good place for economic issues, and it's really rough because, obviously, as I think someone alluded to yesterday, the conversation has become so, like, people think they want socialism because they don't fucking know what it means, and the word capitalism has become a dirty word, and it sucks because I fucking love the word capitalism. My old business cards used to say Ovens O'Brien capitalist, and I loved it, and it makes me so sad. And so every time I'm in like a Facebook argument with people, I'm like trying to advocate for capitalism, and people think I'm advocating for the Slytherins. But like, the point is that, like, for me, I was like, yeah, I believe in controlling my own money, and I believe I believe in controlling who gets it. And it is somewhat easier when I'm talking to friends on the left and we're talking about Trump, and I'm going, I don't want Trump to have this money, and they go like, yeah, no, me neither. And I'm like, but I also don't want Biden to have it. I don't want Kamala to have it. I don't want Clinton's to have it. I don't want whoever the fuck you guys come up with next. Like, I don't want any of them to have it. And it becomes like an interesting conversation where I'm just like, look, like, remember, the power that you give, like, your allies, is power that someday your worst enemy will have. So don't give them any. And so anyway, the point, I know this is like, sorry, a digression, but the fact is, like, any issue can be a women's issue, because any issue can be a men's issue. It's not like men just care about taxes and guns. You care about your children. You care about your families. You care about being able to take care of them. You care about, like, you care about so many other things, including your own fucking healthcare and your access to, let's say, male birth control or whatever else, and the government deciding you don't get those things. So I think that, like, at the end of the day, I think any issue can be a women's issue. And the biggest thing, and this is an advocacy for both, for advocating to women, but also just advocating for anybody who might not be a libertarian yet, is that listening is the best part of activism. Having conversations with people to find out what they value, what they care about, and then giving them libertarian solutions to the problems presented with that question is the best way to go, hey, I thank you for letting me know that what you value is education. Let's talk about education and how libertarianism will allow you to give your children the best possible education. And then we do that with every single issue. And that's the biggest key, is listen to people, find out what they care about most of all, and become fluent in every topic. There's gonna be topics like, I can talk about drugs way better than a lot of other people, and someone else might be able to talk about tax policy and the Fed for like a little bit better than me. Like, you know, practice, get better at every issue. Also be able to call in your reserves. When people say like, oh, you have a question about drugs, let me introduce you to Avens O'Brien, and I can talk about that quite a bit. It's so good for us to collaborate and work together to be able to hand off, like learn from each other and hand off questions to other people, so that people are getting the best possible answers and the best possible activism behind it.
The question is, going back to the difference in treatment and stuff. Is there a difference between male or female doctors doing that, or is it just general? Coming from my perspective, I see it as pretty much it's a doctor thing, not male female doctor. I think it's because it's how they're being taught and how they're trained, because they're not just learning under female doctors, are not just learning under female doctors. Males are not just learning under males. So they're learning from just above them and how the way the system has been. A lot of it is how they go through their diagnostics and everything. And I think it's just become culture. Pretty much.
Voluntary social services programs that don't forcibly steal money from individuals.
We articulate like non-coercive government things. I mean, sorry, I guess I apologize. So the person who's asking us our question online, as far as we can understand it, it's about articulating a non-coercive form of social program or help. And I think at the end of the day, so here's the funny thing, and this is a weird perspective on my activism, is because I think that part of libertarian activism is going around and, you know, talking about why the government is awful. Another part of activism is like trying to just be your best self. So I'm an entrepreneur that works in legalization efforts, and then another part of activism that I advocate for quite a bit, I did a speech about this at Anarchapulco in 2020, is this idea of making yourself useful in your activism. And one of those things is that everybody has a pet cause that they care about. Everybody has a thing. Like I rescue animals. Like that's a little pet cause of mine. Everybody's got a pet cause, right? And I think that we should see more activists doing a thing where, what I like to say is private solutions to public problems, is to identify public problems out there, whether it's you know, children who are not getting full meals at home, or whether it's you know, so like basically the school lunch program, right? Like finding the private solution to that problem. And one of the biggest things is just like literally starting an organization, nonprofit organization or something like that, to kind of fill that gap. And then the more efficiently and productively you fill fill that gap, the more you can get donors and people who go, hey, you're trying to solve a problem and I like that, and I'd rather give my money to you than to the government. And so by working not just as activists to legalize things and do things in the LP and whatever, like one of the biggest things I think we should do is find, you know, a number of activists who are in favor of, you know, X, Y, and Z program that they want to help. They want to help, you know, elderly people that don't have health care, or poor people that are struggling to access healthy foods, or whatever it, rescuing animals, like whatever your thing is. I think it's really beneficial for people to work together to actually try to create like voluntary programs to solve those problems, because they're going to be much more efficient than the government. And I think all you have to do is show them that they work. If you show people that something works, utility precedes belief, and you can get people to kind of glomp onto an idea and go, hey, I'm going to donate money to that because it's helping children and the whatever. It's you know, it's helping thing that I care about. And I think that that's like such a valuable way for us to really show, so that instead of going, oh yeah, we're going to cut welfare, we go like, hey, and for the families who truly need it, here are these programs that exist now in privately for us to help. I think that's actually one of the biggest things that will help libertarians, is the number of people who do kind of these philanthropic efforts to reduce people's dependency on government by providing a private solution, will then go, hey, you know, instead of the government stealing this much of my money, which this huge percentage of it goes to, you know, bombing children overseas, and then some huge percent of it goes to this and this and this. And then, oh, and that 3 pennies a year or whatever goes to, you know, like blind children, who whatever the hell the issue is, right? For me to be able to go, I actually would rather give $20 a year or $100 a year or whatever the fuck. It's my money and I get to decide. So I think one of the biggest things that we really need to talk about is how another element of libertarian activism should be getting out there and being philanthropic to show people that government isn't needed. At the end of the day, I would love the abolition of government, but I'm really going for the obsolescence of it. And so the more that we make government obsolete, the more that we can show people that they don't need it, and we can win that battle on every front.
Brendan.
I was hoping it was going to be like interesting, like AOC or something. No, ham bomb. Can I just find my way out of the elevator and leave them in it? Like, you know, I'll let them know someone's coming for them. You know, the government will come for them. I'm gonna climb out the top panel with the, you know, it's like, you know, the movies. I've always wondered, by the way, if that's a real thing. Really? I was like, someday I want to be like, oh, I'm gonna like get the panel and I'm gonna open it up and I'm gonna get into the elevator. I've always wondered about that. It's like when you go into a bank and you imagine how you'd rob it. Is that, you know, has everyone ever had that theory? Pam Bondi or Kamala Harris in an elevator, who do we talk about liberty with? Is that like, how do we try to convince her to be a libertarian? What if we just have both of them in there? And again, it's like Thunderdome. I just get out and I just be like, all right, everybody, let's get some fucking swords and go at it. It's a lovely question, but I don't know. I will say on a politicians you don't expect, right? I have this running joke about mainstream politicians, which is that I don't like pretty much any of them. You know, I'm wishing Massey good luck with his stuff because he's a good guy. But one of my fun little triangulations is that you can generally find the libertarian answer to a question that's before Congress if and only if both Ted Cruz and AOC vote for it. This actually works with Massey too. But like, if AOC votes for something, that doesn't mean it's libertarian. But if also Massey votes for it, you found the libertarian crosshair. It's a really, really, really funny thing. But if you look it up, it's true. And Massey, obviously, like 99% of his stuff is going to be like libertarian aligned. So Cruise is like one of those fun ones where like, yeah, but Cruise and AOC, where they align is generally a libertarian answer, and it's fascinating. And it really also tells you how fucking terrible Congress is. So, just we leave that with the fuck the government. Just giving you guys a little morning pep, Any more questions?
Any more questions? Nope. Oh. We have Pennsylvania's just starting. There's 3 of us. One is interim from Venezuela in Pittsburgh, and then I have one in Philly, and then me. That's pretty much it. So we're very infantile in starting, but Lana, Miss Lovely Lana in Jersey does a lot of stuff. So we partner with Jersey. But
we also, it's a good opportunity too, is like as more women come in and just be like, hey, let's do something. In LA, we used to try to do like every month we try to get together and do like a 2-hour sesh. We'd get some wine, we'd get some cheese, we'd talk about something. And it's been really interesting seeing how it's evolved over the years. So like a couple years back, I brought everybody to go see Wonder Woman because I was like, let's go do a thing together, just us girls. And so we went and saw Wonder Woman. And so we'll just kind of pick it out an activity. And then what I tried to do specifically is that there was like a bunch of Liberty on the Rocks events in LA, and they're like overwhelmingly male. And so I was like, let's get the Lola contingent out together so that if anyone's like feeling sketched out by the bros with the beers going, hey, what's up, pretty lady? Like we had a little bit of a social support. So we definitely try to do that, and that can be really helpful is like as we connect with other women in Lola across a state or something, is to kind of connect to a normal event, an event that is going to possibly be predominantly male, and just make sure that we're kind of like social proof for each other, because I think it's really helpful. But we do, it's really funny because in LA, like one of the things we've started doing is we would get together, we would like workshop political problems and whatever. So it'd be like a couple hours, like 1 to 3 hours of just chill and working on things like that. We would practice our elevator pitches. We would do kind of like, one of the things we started practicing was like how to do short interviews. And how to like quickly give like 15-second sound bites. But one of the things that we do in LA is honestly like all of us are kind of entrepreneurs or doing something with business or whatever. And so pretty much it's just become a hype thing. So like we'll get together once a month with our wine and our cheese and whatever. We'll be like, what are you working on? And each of us will kind of tell each other what we're working on so that we can be supportive. And it's pretty cool in LA. It's mostly like entrepreneurial women. So we're kind of in that kind of support space. So it feels kind of like a little like capitalist boot camp. But it's I think every Lola chapter is going to work with the women that come that show up and what they do. And so if your wife wants to get involved, I think that reaching out to other women in the area and putting together some kind of thing. It can be casual, it can be fun, whatever. It can be a good time. And also I know Lola chapters that like a lot of the women have kids, and so they also integrate childcare in that so that they can spend more time together. So that's what I love, is that like Lola chapters are deeply individual to the women who are involved in them, and also they do things like plan out childcare so that women who have a bunch of kids at home aren't like stuck having to stay home. And that I think is really important. I think that's a huge aspect of this movement, is when women become aware of like what's keeping other women from engaging in politics. And one of the biggest things is that like when you're busy with children, somebody has to stay home with the kids. And so what I love is you'll see that chapters of the Libertarian Party and other groups like the Free State Project, as you see more and more people with kids, it's like we need to be more friendly, like family friendly, which means having things like childcare options so that people can keep engaging as adults while their kids are taken care of. And so it's something that I think is so beneficial. And it doesn't have to be this like men versus women thing, but it's just like the augmentation of recognizing that there's a whole underserved thing here that can expand our movement so much by giving it just that little bit of attention. I'm sorry, that wasn't an answer to your question there, but I just like felt like I should throw that in.
Yeah, well, I did forget one member. I have one in Bedford, Miss Julie Perry. So there's 4 of us. But no, also like for like our state with PA and larger states, we do virtual stuff, and we do like book clubs, and it's so many different things we do. So there's so many different ways to get involved. We also have stuff national level of like groups from different states. Like, hey, let's do this. Our national lead, she's touring the country, so she's like, here, let's I'm gonna be in your area on this date, let's set something up. Like, so there's always stuff, but just getting involved.
One of the coolest things to note as well is that Lola keeps a speaker list. And so Lola, if you go to Lola's website, if you're like somebody running a convention or something and you want to find speakers and you want to find speakers who are interesting, you can sort them by like their subject matter and also like their location. So you could find women in New York who can talk about X, Y, and Z. And so you can find speakers for particular topics. You can find female speakers for particular topics. I mean, one of the things that Lola said is like, there are plenty of women who speak in the movement, but like, you know, like, how do you find them quickly? Like, you think of like 5 of them, and so how do you find the rest of them? And so Lola has like a speakers, there's a word for it, but like the speaker book or whatever. And you can find women, you can find their topics of interest, and you can find their locations. So then you can find somebody who's like within easy distance to come out. So just a nice thing for you guys to know when you're doing convention stuff. And then Brandon, a question. We do have binders full of women. Suck it, Mitt Romney. I think was that it?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna wrap up. I appreciate participation and want to say thanks for having us like every year. So we'll see you next year.
Enjoy your breakfast and your mimosas. If you haven't gotten your mimosa, do that. Also, thank you for having me, guys. You guys are great every time.